Good morning, everyone. Well, I was about to start writing my daily update on all the entrants and started to look at the forward weather and thought there's a few interesting things happening, and I'd rather give you a video overview, then I can talk about some of these things that are happening. So first of all, just so you remember, if I hit this little button here, it sets a grid up, and it's latitude and longitude grid, and that's the equator there. This Schiehallies lagging a bit behind. We'll sort that out. It's not quite the relative position to the rest of the fleet. Anyway, then I'll just zoom this up. We're going to show you some interesting things with weather. Antoine still at the back of the fleet here, coming down in Chichester class, and hit on that. He's doing 4 knots. It's relevant to the wind. I'll just put the wind overlay here. Just come up to the windsock, hit that, go windy TY, and hopefully, yeah, here it comes. So this is the real-time current weather. These position reports, if you get on there, it says 4 o'clock UTC, which is about 6 o'clock in the morning for us, and it's 8, so it's about 2 hours ago with these positions. So then we come down here, you can see there's some interesting things happening with the breeze. Istvan at the back here, he's doing 5.5, quite nice, and some steady breezes coming. On the other side, there's a bit of a pressure system here coming around. Obviously, you can see the wind zipping here. The orange is a bit more wind, so Mark Sinclair up the back there, he's doing 4 knots, which is okay. He's got the wind on his port quarter coming from behind him, so he's making most of that. Loic is ripping across to the east now, quite a good move, and doing 5.2 knots. We'll look at what the weather's going to do in a minute, forward looking, and see how we go. Abelish is just coming into plenty of breeze. He's hooked around and decided to go east. Not a bad idea, because there's not much wind behind him, and usually these systems come across, so he's got to be careful he doesn't get sucked into that hole, so get across as quick as he can. Gregor, he's still heading down. This is actually the 30th parallel, okay, of latitude. 40 still coming. I'll explain that in a minute. But he's making good progress set to the southeast, doing 6.5 knots, so really ripping along. Susie's now in a really interesting position, because there's the other group over here, but she's heading down south and east as well, which she needs. These guys in the middle group, they're coming down. There's going to be a big hole opening up here. You can see this opening up, and that's not uncommon either. There's often a high that's moving across towards Cape Town, but I'll explain the weather a bit more in a sec. So Susie's doing 5.3 knots. She'll be happy about that. It should be reasonable conditions. Igor up the back here, 4.5, not as much wind. You can see it blowing off, but heading southeast. All these guys in this part of the fleet are all heading south or a little bit east as well. R's making good time. He went off the tracker yesterday for 18 hours, 24 hours or something. There was a power problem with his tracker, which is interesting. But now he's doing 6 knots, wind on the port beam. Uku's doing 5 knots, because as you go back here, you can see the wind is lightening off. It's actually getting less and less, and that's explaining why R's 1 knot slower, and Tapio 1 knot slower again. He's only got 4 knots, and then you come back to Igor, 4.5. So we're all making reasonable progress. Tapio's still got some issues with his power, and we'll hope to find out a bit more about that this week on the phone. Mark Slats tacked over yesterday morning. He's now heading down southeast, doing 5.6 knots, but you can see he's heading into a bit of a hole here. Philippe Pesh wouldn't be too worried. He had to tack because of the headwinds he had, but that's slowly swinging back around to the east now. So normally he'd head across southeast, but he's heading into this hole. So that's going to be an interesting one. And Jean-Luc must be getting good weather, because if he had continued on to the east, he's going to run out of wind shortly. Also, it's slightly headwind, so he's still on starboard tack, but he may be trying to head up and keep in this wind band, so at least he's got some wind, stay north of this hole, and keep making easting for now. So that's the first part. So what we'll do now is I'll pull the weather forward and just have a look, and you'll see what's going to evolve. So that's set up at 6 o'clock UTC on the 14th. So we'll go ahead one day. I'll pull that to 6 o'clock UTC on the 15th. That's 7 o'clock, that's near enough. And you can see it's a little similar. Abelish he'll be across this side now. He'll be forward of these relative positions, because it's 24-hour forward. He'll still have good sailing breezes. Mark Sinclair's got a good breeze. These guys have got average breezes, so they'll keep moving at 4 to 5 knots. Susie's dipping down. Istvan up the back there. Still good breezes from the east, so he'll enjoy that. All of these guys are going to enjoy that. Mark Slats, he starts to fall into a hole. By tomorrow, he's going to slow right down. He'll be here somewhere where the cursor is, so he'll have a little bit less wind. So he's going to slow down. Philippe will be in the middle of the hole. I doubt whether he'll have enough speed to get across. He may still have just a little bit of breeze. Now, tactically, normally if he was racing without his little short tiller and had a wind vane, he'd be in a perfect position because he's under this big hole here, this high pressure. That's the center of the high pressure there. And he would be rocketing across because over here, here's Cape Town, okay, and you really need to start coming down here. And look at this, a lot of purple wind here, some bigger breezes. Remembering the colour dictates the wind strength. So anyway, let's go forward another day. So we'll go forward to the 16th at 6 o'clock, or that's 7 o'clock. So this is 2 days ahead. And that big wind's here now pushing up and bouncing into Cape Town, so there's nowhere through. At that stage, 2 days from now, the high pressure system has been squashed back by this low here coming through, and that's good for Jean-Luc. He'll have some breeze. He'll be roaring across. He'll be coming across here in 2 days' time. So Jean-Luc will be happy. Philippe will have breeze. That's again a good position to be in because you're on the back of the low going across. So you're not going to get any heavier winds. It's only going to go light, and it's a case of hurry up before this thing grabs you. But look what's happened to Mark. Now let's assume he gets 2 days ahead. He's going to be sitting in this hole, and Jean-Luc is taking off. Even Philippe will be moving ahead, but he's going to slow right down. These other guys coming across still got good constant breezes, so they'll be happy. You know, they'll be making good progress on course. The same with the middle fleet, but remembering now this is 2 days ahead. The leaders of this little middle fleet here are and so on, they'll be driving into this hole, so they'll slow down. So the tail enders, Igor, Tapio, they might catch up a little bit on R. Loic is going to be happy. He's going to be, he'll be coming across here quite nicely. And Mark should be good if he makes some easting. He doesn't want to go south. If he goes south, he'll get stuck in a hole. But if Mark comes across here, he'll be okay, and I think they will. I think Tommy will be just enough to keep going. Istvan's okay. And up the back here, if we look at Antoine, he should have good breezes. He should be starting very soon to hook around and carry on. Just as a quick peek before we forget Francesco back here, you can see this is a 2-day forecast. And so he's drifting around with not much wind now anyway. He's only showing 1.9 knots, so he's still got a few days. He's struggling in the same area that the rest of the fleet had, weeks ago. So that's it. But the reason for this one, what I wanted to do now is show you something very interesting when we look forward to the Indian Ocean. So I'll go back to 1 for 1. All right, and you look at this and you think, wow, this is pretty cool. Big winds. Yeah, how much is there? What's going on? When it goes to purple, if you look down at I've got to slide the map down here. If you look down to purple, it's 35, 44 knots. Now, so that's like 50 knots in there. But remember I said this is forecast wind. If it's saying 50 knots, you can bet your bottom dollar that you're going to be getting 60 to 70 knot gusts. You always pick it up at least 15 to 20%, maybe even 30% for the gusts and so on, and big seas. Now this is the 40th parallel here, okay, parallel of latitude, so it's 40 degrees south of the equator. Right? And to give you a size scale, if you're ever wanting distance, the distance between the 40th parallel and the 30th parallel is obviously 10 degrees. All right, 10 degrees of latitude going south. Every degree represents of latitude represents 60 miles, 60 nautical miles. So if there's 10 there, it's 600 miles, right? So Philippe is 600 miles from the 40th parallel. He's headed for Cape Town. Jean-Luc wants to get round the corner, and you can already see that these Southern Ocean low pressure systems are actually still up quite high. Now, historically, when Suhaili came down, she was a little bit later. Generally, the fleet is arriving now about 2 weeks ahead of Suhaili, assuming Suhaili left on the 14th of June. right? So in other words, on Suhaili's real voyage, she would arrive down here at the 40th parallel sort of thing around about 2 weeks' time. Our fleet's already here. It'll be, I forget, I did the numbers yesterday. It'll be hitting the 40th parallel about 2 weeks ahead. So it's late winter, all right? Now, to give you the next explanation, if we come across here, this is the 40th parallel, and when Suhaili and Joshua sailed in the GGR in 68, they both sailed pretty much along this 40th parallel, because that's where all the sailing ships went, and they had data there. The iceberg limit was down the bottom. At the moment, we have this zone here, which is the restricted zone. Entrants aren't allowed to go down. Now, if we pull the weather forward a couple of days, you watch what happens. So we'll go through to 16, 17, that's the 18th, all right? Let that catch up. So there's the 18th, that's, what's that, 4 days ahead. And if we go, and you can see, even above the restricted zone, in here, the purples now, and these blues, you're getting forecast, that's probably forecast 50, 60 knots. So it could be blowing 70 knots in here, even higher, 80 knots. And if we keep going across, I'll go right to the end here. This is the 22nd, just to show you what's going to happen. If I come across here, you'll see, I'll give you the worst of the bits here. Let's go through. Okay, this is on the 18th, in 4 days' time. Our fleet won't be there, right? Our fleet will be back here somewhere. But imagine if they're here now, all right? That is a big wind. That is huge seas. And to give you an idea, we can measure the seas. If we go to the windy TY and we come in and we hit the bottom one, waves, right? And this will all change different colours. So these colours represent the sea state. And if we go down here again at the bottom, hang on, you'll see along the bottom here, you can see that the colour gradient represents the height of the waves. You look at this white area here, that's 9 metres, that's 9 metre waves. This has gone white and beyond, that's as big as they measure. So you can be figuring that's at least a 10 metre, in the centre here, that's a 10 metre wave, right, or swell. But it does the same things. This is average height between the peaks and the troughs and all that sort of stuff. So I've got to tell you right now, in 4 days' time, the forecast for here for waves are going to be probably 15 metre waves with 70 knot winds, okay? And this is the 40th parallel, this is our restricted zone. There's a bit of a discussion going on at the moment that because the fleet is actually arriving in the Southern Ocean in late winter, we're thinking about lifting this restricted zone up another 2 degrees to get them up to 42 degrees. And if we make that 42 degrees, just to be on the safe side, the entrance should be targeting about 40 degrees south because they don't want to go over the zone. Because you can see the huge difference. This is the massive area of the storms, and they diminish when they get above 40. So if they're here, they can get up the other side of it, go around, and it's a little bit safer. So huge challenges ahead for the fleet. The temperatures down here will be 3 degrees. In fact, 3 or 4 degrees. I'll try to... This is temperature of the sea, which is actually a bit warmer, but let's just see. So these blues, okay, no, this is actually air temperature, okay. Blue represents 0 degrees, right? So here it's 0 degrees. Down here it's minus degrees, all right? This is in Celsius. So you can see in the greens there it's 5 degrees. Here it's getting a little bit warmer because the air's coming off Africa. But right here on our restricted zone, it's 0 degrees. That means there's going to be snow, there's going to be hail, there's going to be all sorts of stuff. So if you think the GGR has been interesting so far, I have to tell you, the adventure is getting quite serious and it's going to get very tough in the weeks ahead. So that's all I wanted to say. Let's see what the wave height is at the moment for these guys and the temperatures. So temperature generally through the fleet now is 20 degrees, 25 degrees. In 2 weeks, it's going to be down around 0 to 5 degrees. Okay, let's go for wave height. We'll pick waves here. Okay, on this color gradient, they've got between 1.5 to 3 meters. When Jean-Luc says, oh, you got a big swell at the moment, it's 3 meters. He knows the business. He knows that he's going to be 10, 12, 14 meter seas coming up. And watch this space. That's all I'll say. But getting very interesting and everyone's happy for the moment. So enjoy the GGR. Thanks.